everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Launch School podcast. My name is Mandy, and I'm a student at Launch School. I'm currently in the last course of the core curriculum, which is JS 230. You might have seen me around on Slack as a fellow student, a TA, or a friend. If you're new here to the podcast, I want to give you a warm welcome. One of the best things about Launch School is the community and the people. When I first joined Launch School, I did not know anyone at all, and I was super shy. I easily opened up and made more friends just because of how welcoming everyone is. I wanted to share with you the group where I made my very first friends here at Launch School. This episode is about Women Who Code. I actually attended my first Women Who Code meetup when I was in prep, and now I've been co-hosting Women Who Code for the past year and a half. We host meetups once every 3 weeks, and it has honestly been such a fun experience. I wanted to give you a glimpse of what Women Who Code is like. So in this episode, I interview several students in the Women Who Code community about how and why the group started, what it's like hosting a meetup, the experiences of the attendees, and several memorable moments throughout the year. How did Women Who Code start? To answer this question, I went to ask Elizabeth. Elizabeth has been a big part of Launch School as a TA and a student. She hosted the very first Women Who Code meetup and shares about how this group all started.
So I believe that we started formally holding these Women Who Code meetups at Launch School in 2018. Chris and I had been discussing for quite a while about how we could better support and encourage women in the Launch School community. I was really thirsty for connection with others like me who face similar challenges, whether that be feeling underrepresented in tech or motherhood. I just was looking for others who I could relate to on a personal level. So we felt that there was a need there, that there were other women or non-binary persons who were craving that connection. But often it seemed like in other communication channels in the community, like in Slack, for example, women were not always as likely to be outspoken and make those connections with one another. So it could be hard to kind of find other women and make those connections with one another. We decided to start these Women Who Code meetups as sort of a safe space, not only to meet up and talk with one another about Launch School, but just to forge those connections with others like ourselves who were also underrepresented genders in tech. So they started out very informal and quite unstructured, to be honest. It was just a way to connect and offer support and encouragement to one another, also to share resources and just to see representation, right? To see other women who were succeeding in the community. And I think that was a great encouragement, I know, to myself and to others as well. But now the women who have been holding the meetups and running it, I know Mandy, Bernadette, they've done a great job. They've really improved the Women Who Code group at Launch School. It's more structured. They have guest speakers come to the meetups, capstone graduate speakers. There's been a meetup for moms to talk about the challenges specifically related to motherhood and going through the Launch School curriculum as a mom. And I think it's really been great. And I hope that it has helped the community to feel like a really safe and encouraging place for underrepresented genders, including both women and non-binary folks. So yeah, I think it's been excellent. And I'm so proud to see that Launch School is supporting women in that way.
What is it like hosting a meetup? There's been so many wonderful students that helped host the meetups in the past. First, I asked Dana, and then I asked Bernadette to share their experience with hosting a meetup.
Hi, my name is Dana. Leading the meetup has allowed me to meet a ton of smart, driven, and like-minded women who are all eager to learn from each other. Hearing about others' journeys and how their diverse experiences contribute to their learning has definitely expanded my understanding of what's possible. I formed a number of long-term and very meaningful relationships that's been instrumental in pushing me forward over the years.
I've really enjoyed hosting the Women Who Code meetup. I think it's been a great experience to meet different people from different backgrounds. Also, hosting together with Mandy has been a great experience. I've gotten to know her on a much more personal level, and I feel like we've built a good friendship, even though we're so far away. And yeah, I think the way that it impacted me the most has definitely got to be just hearing everyone's stories. We all come from, like I mentioned, different backgrounds, but it's how we bring all of our special knowledge, the things we have learned, the different industries we have worked in, how we bring that to launch school. And I think it's a great learning opportunity for everyone to just listen and really understand where our strengths lie. Many of us don't come from a tech background, many of us do. We all bring something different to the table, and really appreciating that and really valuing that, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Coming up next, Rachel and then Stephanie share what it's like attending a Women Who Code meetup.
My experience has been great so far. Yeah. When I first joined Launch School, I guess I was a bit intimidated to kind of get involved in the Launch School community since my professional background is not in anything technical or engineering related. My background is in education, so I've never worked in tech and I don't have any friends who work in tech. But I started going to Women Who Code meetups when I was pretty early on in my Launch School journey, I believe in Ruby 101 or maybe Ruby 120. And at the meetups, I just started meeting more and more people, including many people who, like me, don't have that previous technical experience. And the more I went, the more I connected with others in this really supportive kind of sub-community of Launch School, and the more comfortable I felt overall in the Launch School space. So I'd say it's had a very positive impact on me. Also, now that I've been going to the Women Who Code meetups for a while, and I guess been a part of Launch School for a while now, it's been really cool to just meet newer students to Launch School. So like those who are still in Ruby 101, JS 101, or even prep, since I can remember being there not that long ago. So yeah, it's been great.
I've had a really positive experience attending the Women Who Code meetups. This meetup was where I actually first learned to give a tech talk. I gave a 30-minute presentation about Vim, the classic text editor. I was early in the Launch School curriculum at the time, and I'd never given a technical presentation before. It was a tremendous learning process, putting everything together and then sharing it with the group. And it's a great environment for giving your first tech talk because it's both a serious technical audience, so maybe 10 to 20 of your peers who are really there to learn from you. And at the same time, it's a very supportive audience. So a group of women who really want to help you develop your technical communication skills. These skills, they're just fundamental for building a software engineering career. So after giving that first Vim presentation to the Women Who Code group, that really kind of kicked things off for me. I learned that giving tech talks is totally doable. And I've gone on to give maybe 4 or 5 other presentations while I've been at one. I've also really gotten a lot out of the Q&A sessions with recent capstone alumni who've just completed the job search. Every few months, the Women Who Code group hosts a session like this, where the guest is usually a few weeks, a few months into her post-capstone software engineering job. And I always find it really both informative and really inspiring. It's kind of this inside look at what it really takes to land your new role. So the logistics of phone screens, take-home projects, behavioral interviews, interviewing in a startup versus interviewing in a much bigger company. Even more important than this logistical stuff, hearing from women who are a bit ahead of you in the process of starting their careers, it's incredibly motivating. They've followed the same path to learning software engineering that you're on right now, and they've gotten excellent results. They are this concrete example right there, of how you can follow a path and really transform your career. And then on a related note, I think the biggest impact the Women Who Code group has had for me is as a way to meet other women who become both your friends and your role models. I'm thinking of 2 women in particular, one who is now a software engineer at PayPal and another who's now a senior developer at Shopify. We've done study sessions together, practiced live coding, been on lots of Women Who Code calls together. So you make friends with these other women who are both solid programmers and really decent people. That combination of friend and role model is really very inspiring and very powerful.
Students support one another in Women Who Code. I've seen countless acts of kindness and encouragement in this community. So I reached out to Gwen and Shay and ask them how they have been helped by Women Who Code.
Hello, my name is Gwen Huang. Launch School has developed an impressive track record by the time I joined. I discovered the Women Who Code community at Launch School. I immediately signed up for the Slack channel and meetings with the hope that I could find some support within the community. So far, Women Who Code has been an amazing community for me. I struggled with a lot of doubts and anxiety about transitioning my career into web development. I have been able to freely discuss any topics on my mind, such as anxiety around studying, how to develop consistent study habits, how to deal with the scary uncertainties, and so on. Everyone diligently listened to my concerns and offered advice. I received no judgment of any kinds from the group. Women Who Code has hosted several meetings which they interviewed former students who completed both the core curriculum and capstone about their journey and the job search experiences. These meetings were particularly helpful for me because I also plan to apply for capstone when I complete it with the core curriculum. In addition, they helped to affirm that doubts and fears could be part of the normal learning process, and I could become successful if I stay on this path. A few months ago, I got a new job and couldn't make it to the few meetings. When I came back, I received a warm welcome as if I hadn't left at all. Overall, Women Who Code has made a tremendous impact on my journey to law school.
I think the thing that was sort of most helpful for me about Women Who Code, well, at first it's just nice to have a place to feel a part of. I've often felt pretty alienated from a lot of the spaces for being a woman and being queer and being older. And I felt totally accepted in Women Who Code. And paradoxically, it was also a really great place for me to just be a person who coded instead of being a woman who coded, because we were all women who coded. So it sort of flipped that dynamic where I feel like in other spaces, there's always that aspect of my identity that is present in a way that can be sort of impairing, or it adds an extra layer of concern, because I'm a woman and because I missed a syntax error. But within that group, that's not present. They're all women who code, so none of them thinks that I'm failing because I'm a woman. So it sort of takes that layer back a level, and it's a place where I could just sort of be and just talk about programming with a more relaxed space and feel more sort of accepted and like I belonged there.
Up next, Lena and then Carolina share with us how Women Who Code has positively influenced their journeys here at Launch School.
The Women Who Code has definitely influenced me. When you study at Launch School, it is all remote, so it can feel like pretty isolating and lonely. And add a pandemic on top of it, you're even more isolated. But the cool thing about it is everyone at Women Who Code are just like regular human beings, which can seem weird to say, but like we sometimes have an image of like a programmer being at their desk with maybe a hoodie on, maybe antisocial, maybe they don't like humans, which, sometimes that is true, but the Women Who Code was just like, oh, human beings that are just like me, that have lives, that do the dishes, that talk to other human beings, which I know can seem super silly, but it was just nice to see human beings, not just their profile pictures, talk and be social and come, belong, chit chat, talk about programming, but also talk about the experience of being a human. But yeah, just the community of like belonging. It's a safe space where people can be vulnerable about their struggles and challenges. Oh, I'm struggling with this and this is super hard for me. And someone else can be like, I've gone through this. Or if they haven't, they can show empathy and make it known that it's okay to struggle. Like no one's good at this from the get go. It takes time and practice. Just knowing that there are other people who have gone through this all the way to like capstone and working and doing great is just inspiring and also like empowering to know that, hey, if that person had no idea what they were doing at the beginning, and that's how I feel now, there's a way forward. Even though it's, of course, a lot of hard work and struggle, it's possible. And I think seeing that possibility is what makes Women Who Code great. So you can go from like prep or even before prep, not know like what launch goal is, not know what mastery based learning is, and then connect the dots and see yourself too and be like, okay, I can do this. It'll be hard work, of course, but it's possible.
In the beginning of my launch school journey is when I attended Women Who Code the most. I was going weekly at that time. It did influence my journey because it made me come across other women and non-binary folks as well. We could discuss our vulnerabilities. I think that was the greatest aspect at that time when I started my launch school journey, is just being able to talk to somebody that you can relate to. Because I joined during COVID, it was also quite lonely. So yeah, it did influence my journey in a positive way. It made me feel included. It made me feel a part of launch school as well. So yeah, it was a really great influence, especially in the beginning.
The second question I had for Lena and Carolina is if they had any memorable moments to share throughout the past year.
There's a lot of like little moments that still resonate with me to this day. I think one of them was when I was co-hosting with you and I had lots of questions about what its role was within Launch School. One of the things I think you said that stood out was like Chris Lee is just here to support women who code, not tell us what to do with it. So it's really like a student initiative community space focusing on what the student needs are rather than like marketing or business stuff, which I thought was really cool. But it just shows the intention for like women in launch school to have a space. I don't know if these are moments, but just like things I remember, different guests on Women Who Code, like Melissa and Catherine were on talking about their experiences. It was just so great to see like they come from non-engineering centric backgrounds, but still were able to find and make a space for themselves here. And also like them being present there and being generous, sharing their experiences really impacted me, and being aware that, oh, you don't need to struggle by yourself. People are here to help, and it's normal to also be generous and contribute to the community. So that was like one of the impactful moments.
I know you guys have had several capstone alumni come to the meetups, but the first one that I attended was when Nancy Tring came in. And that was really memorable for me because it's one thing to hear like people go to capstone after finishing core and their journey after that, but it's another thing to be in a Zoom meeting and seeing somebody that's a capstone alumni. And I remember Nancy had just landed her job as well, and her speaking of her experience in her current job, and it just made me feel super inspired because it made it feel real. It made it feel like something that is attainable with hard work and persistence. That definitely was a very memorable moment. It was just really inspiring to hear her experience. So that would be number one. Number two, it's not really a specific memorable moment for me, but I'm from New York and I come from a very different background as well. So women in my past industry, and I don't want to generalize, but definitely in New York, it's very competitive. People don't really show their vulnerabilities, right? And so when I went to Women Who Code, every time somebody brings up, or even I bring up my shortcomings, just talking about people's vulnerabilities is memorable because it makes me feel like we are human, we go through the same things. And that idea of being able to relate to somebody while you're trying to attain something, that's such a great feeling. The coursework is a lot, and sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Maybe I can't do this. I don't have a programming background either. So having a space that is not judgmental whatsoever, where I feel free and I feel comfortable to discuss my shortcomings, or I'm not good enough, I'm overwhelmed, I don't think I can pass this assessment, and being able to relate to people that are your peers, that are there to support you and help you out, that's such a great feeling. So it's not a precise memorable moment, but it definitely is something that every time I encounter, I just love it. It just reminds me of why I attend. You also get to meet other incredible women. You get to meet other incredible women and talk to them. For example, I remember I got to meet Lena through Women Who Code, and she had been in study groups that she led. I was always amazed by her. And then I got to speak to her on Women Who Code. One day she was like, oh, I know that you're about to take your assessment. Would you like to do a mock interview? Like, she went out of her way to help me out. The fact that you get to meet people that are encouraging, that want to help you, and this welcoming environment, it's contagious, right? It's been great for me to hear about capstone alumni, their experiences, peers' experiences, vulnerabilities. I just think it's a great channel to definitely attend.
To wrap everything up, I will summarize the events we had in the past year. We've had socializing events to get to know one another. Felicia gave a lightning talk about problem solving. I gave a talk about Deep Work by Cal Newport. Chris Lee was invited for a Q&A. Lena gave a talk on the psychology of imposter syndrome. Agatha led a talk on algorithm bias. Barnadette gave several group meditations. Stephanie led a meetup about being a student and a full-time parent as a mom and tips on balancing studies and family life. There were several tech talks about JavaScript, Ruby, and the text editor Vim, and a couple of more general topics on productivity, study habits, and master-based learning. And of course, our most popular events, capstone and core graduates, Juliet, Melissa, Catherine, Nancy, Rebecca, and more. Many of Launch School's alumni coming in to share their experience with core, capstone, and beyond. That's basically what Women Who Code is about. It's a really nice place for students from underrepresented genders like women and non-binary folks to connect, support one another, and feel a sense of belonging and community. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to the very end. This means a lot to me. I really hope you enjoyed the story of Women Who Code. And lastly, we do these episodes for you and the community. So let us know if you have any suggestions at all. You can email us at hello@launchschool.com, subject line podcast, for your suggestions on future podcast episodes. Thanks so much.